Welcome. This tutorial is part of a series on importing data into EDC RC. In this tutorial, we will consider the source data. First, we will consider attributes of data from 4 commonly found data sources. Then we will discuss checking and processing these files using a small spreadsheet of box data created in Microsoft Excel as an example. Data can be broken down into 2 categories. We will consider pre-existing data, data which was captured for other purposes, and data which was captured specifically for importing into EDC. Pre-existing data may have been produced systematically, or it may have been produced manually. Similarly, data captured for importing into EDC may have been captured using EDC data capture, which performs validation, or it may have been captured manually in a spreadsheet. The source of the data will have some impact on how we prepare it for import. The first time that we are importing data from a given system, we may want to double-check the file format to ensure that it is ready for import. Data files produced by systems may be non-standard. When working with pre-existing data, we may be working with very large files that might be more difficult to screen. In case of trouble, you will want to back up your data beforehand, and you will also want to run the import when the system is not in use. After the import is completed, you will want to spot check it to ensure that it went well. It is good practice to start with a very small import before importing the bulk of the data, and if you have any doubts about an import, it is worth contacting DocuData support to review your data. If you are capturing data specifically for import in EDC, we strongly recommend providing your customers with a template to make it easier. Contact DocuData support for an example. Manually captured data should be screened for errors and omissions. If you are capturing large amounts of data, EDC data capture can be configured to perform validation as the data is being captured. Please contact DocuData for more details. For the purpose of importing into EDC, data file formats can be broken up into 3 categories: CSV, XLS, and other formats. CSV stands for Comma Separated Value and is a simple text format. It is the preferred format for importing into EDC. It can be produced by most applications, including EDC Data Capture, and a free CSV editor is available from www.download.com. EDC can also import XLS files created with Microsoft Excel. However, imports from Excel can take up to 10 times longer and may contain hidden characters. Therefore, we recommend converting to CSV directly before importing. All other data formats, including XLSX, should be saved to CSV in order to perform the import. Once the file has been saved in a text format such as CSV, we should be careful about opening this with a spreadsheet application. Programs such as Excel are known to change text data. They change dates into their preferred format, and they also tend to remove leading zeros from fields that it considers to be numbers. If you do need to edit a CSV file, use a text editor such as CSV'd, mentioned earlier in this tutorial, or Notepad. We recommend the following steps in getting data. First, analyze the customer's needs. How will they identify and request boxes and files? What departments do they have? What document types? How do they determine how their boxes will be disposed of? By document type or by fixed date? Next, consider the data available and figure where we want to map it into EDC. Note that it is important to be consistent in the mapping of the data for a given customer. Third, we will produce a template, either as a EDC data capture job or as a spreadsheet. Once again, you can contact DocuData support for a sample spreadsheet. Here's a simple example of a template for getting source data. This consists of 2 rows, column headers and sample data. Column headers for fields required in order to create new records are highlighted in bold. The line below it contains sample data intended to guide the customer in filling it out. This should be removed prior to import. Once the customer has sent you back some data in the spreadsheet, if it was not produced with EDC data capture, we will review it, and then we will save it in CSV once done. The next portion of our tutorial will walk through an example of reviewing source data that a customer has sent us. The first thing that we will check is the column headers. If there are any rows above the headers, we will delete these. We will also check for any unlabeled data columns and make sure that the columns that are there are meaningful and unique. Next, we will verify that the data corresponds to the column headers. Basically, did the customer understand? And then we will check that the departments, subdepartments, document types, etc. are all spelled correctly. We will also check for blank values and verify that date formats are valid and consistent. If the source data does happen to be in a text format such as CSV, we can still use Excel for viewing it. However, if we want to make any modifications to save, we should use a text editor such as Notepad or CSV. Let's get started with our example. The customer has sent us a file created in Excel. We will open it up and take a look at the data. We will delete rows above the column headers, check for blank or duplicate values, and ensure that they match the data. Filters provide a convenient way of screening data, for example, to detect incorrectly typed departments and subdepartments, document types, and also to identify blank or suspicious data. And so here I'm going to apply the filter. And we see these little triangles. You click on the triangle above the column that we want to filter. It shows us the values that are present. We can select which values we want to see, and we see that this here is typed incorrectly. And we also have these ellipsis values, which turns out isn't a valid row. Then we can show all the values again, go to the next column, and we can see that we have some blank values. We need a dot in the subdepartment field, so we will fill that out. Show all values again. And here they've used quotation mark to indicate it's the same thing for all. We'll fill this out correctly, make it select. Next, we will examine the date formats. We want to make sure that they're consistently applied, and we also want to make sure that the date format being used is valid. These must include 2 numbers for days, 2 numbers for month, and 2 or 4 numbers for the year, and should be separated with a /. Here we see that the date format being used is month, day, year with a 2-digit year, and that all dates are valid. It is also possible to do more advanced data manipulations with spreadsheets. It is a good idea to keep a record of any advanced manipulations that you do in your operations manual for future reference. For imports that you're doing frequently, you will want to do these manipulations through the import rather than manipulating the spreadsheet each time. And while these sorts of manipulations are possible, they tend to be beyond the scope of normal customer service. Here we see that we have description part 1 and part 2, and we are using the concatenate function to join these 2 strings together with a space in between. And then we make sure that the function has copied to all the rows below it. Finally, before importing, we will save the file in CSV format, and then close the spreadsheet before performing the import. If you have any questions, please view the remaining videos in this tutorial series, and do not hesitate to contact DocuData support.